and 14th of 2021. This is the Stoughton Plan Commission meeting, and it looks like we do have a quorum. We do have a new member. We were informed by former Commissioner Seltzer that he was unable to continue to serve, and we posted it on our social media account, and Al Farrell had submitted an application for the position, and he was approved at City Council. So Al is here, and welcome to you. Any words you'd like to tell us about yourself?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just check. All right. Good deal. You know what? It's nice to meet you all. I hope to meet you all in person soon. But I want to thank the mayor and the council for the opportunity to serve. Just a little real quick about myself. I'm originally from Virginia. My wife and I lived in Texas for about 5 years before relocating here to Stoughton to be close to her family. She was born and raised in Belleville, and she's a retired Lutheran pastor. We have 2 adult children. My spare time, I enjoy bowling, disc golf, and biking. I'm retired myself from a 35-year career with the Navy as a civilian, and about 10 years of that included master planning for Navy installations. And so I felt like, even though we've only been here for about 1.5 years, I felt like this was something I could perhaps add some value to, and that's what I'm hoping to do. So appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you for serving. And next item on the agenda is consider approval of the minutes from the last 2 meetings, May 10th and June 2nd. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Move to approve.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on either one of the minutes? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the minutes, say aye.
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 And any opposed to the minutes? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item we have on here, we have elect a vice chair. Was that left over, Michael?
What's that? No, we can elect a vice chair, yes.
Okay. So we would accept nominations for vice chair.
I will nominate Brett Schumacher.
All right. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, I would close the nominations. All in favor of Brett Schumacher as vice chair, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Congratulations, Brett.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
suppose we should have asked perhaps if Brett was willing to accept the nomination, but too late.
No.
Never given out.
All right. Next item is City Council representative report. Alderperson Carabella, would you like to do that?
Sure. Just a few things. At the May 25th council meeting, R72 of 2021 was passed, and at the June 8th council meeting, Ordinance 13 of 2021, as well as Ordinance 14 of 2021, and also Resolution 79 of 2021 were also all passed.
All right. Thank you. And it looks like Michael has the status of the development, the staff report on there. Any questions for Michael or myself on that? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the next item, and that's a request by 51 West LLC for approval to rezone lots 7 through 15, 19 through 23, and outlots 1 through 7 within the 51 West neighborhood. And I believe there's representatives here from 51 West. We'll have them go ahead and kind of give an overview. And then we do have a need for a public hearing. And I know there's at least one person here to speak on that. And then ultimately, we'd like to have a recommendation to the city council. So 51 West, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor. As noted, this subdivision has been before you a couple times already. We recently had the preliminary plat approved by council. We have submitted the final plat, and we are currently looking to rezone in this first item the conventional zoning parcels. So as you see the yellow dots on the west end, those are single family being the SR3 zone lots. All the green dots are all the outlots, which has stormwater management. Some have trails, or they're going to be dedicated as park. And then the orange dots on the far right, on the east end of 51, those are shown as duplex lots. That's really the general review of this, and open the floor back to Plan Commission.
Any initial questions from the commissioners on the rezoning? All right, hearing none, we'll close the regular meeting and we'll go into the public hearing. And I know that that Mike Connor, I think he's here to speak on this issue. Are you here, Mike?
I am.
All
Thank you.
right, go ahead.
So I'm not really here to speak so much on the zoning, but the critical part for myself and other bicycle riders in the city are a strong recommendation came from the Rivers and Trails Task Force to recommend a connection now across Highway 51, some kind of connection, and not in the future. And I think that's one of the things. And I want to just for a minute discuss the problem to be solved. So we want to talk about connectivity, right? How we connect to the town line road and how we get out of town, how a bicyclist would get out of town, and then talk about safety. So as Phil knows, there's a mad dash. It's called a 300-yard dash of death. And it's along Highway 51 from Town Line Road to Welcoming Way or Welcoming Way. And so I'm here tonight to express my concern that there's no connection across Highway 51 for bicycles or pedestrians in this plan. And when I was on the Trails Task Force years ago, Helen Johnson, we were talking 30 years ago, we talked about the same thing. And we said, when that gets developed, we'll work on that. And then one development after another. So I'm here to say that this is the time to figure out how to come across Highway 51, whether it's along the south end of the Linnerud property, where directly across from Town Line Road, whether that's an access point or whatever, but that's what I'm concerned about, and that's why I signed up. I did talk to Bob Dybel from the Rivers and Trails Task Force this afternoon, and he's the one that said they recommended to Dan McGlynn that that this plan be rejected until we get some kind of safe crossing or a crossing of some kind for bicyclists. That there's no way to get to Oregon, there's no way to get to Madison except for that 300-yard stretch, that 300-yard dash, and it's really dangerous. So I would like to see that under consideration, and that's why I'm here.
All right, thank you for your feedback, Mike. Nobody else was signed up for the public hearing. So we'll close the public hearing and reopen for the regular business. And usually we don't have a discussion as far as during the public hearing, but I would like to at least give Mike and Bob and others an update, and Bob can certainly talk about his conversations. We do have a meeting with the DOT this week, a staff meeting, and we're going to be talking about the roundabouts that are scheduled in 2022, as well as the 51 corridor plan. And what we're going to talk about with the corridor plan is the sequencing and the the timing of different segments. And in the last map that I received, and I don't know if it's the final map or not, but the section that this development is going to be in, they're scheduled to do part of the construction. They're talking 2026, 2027 range. So I know that's been part of the conversation that Bob Dvorak has been having with the DOT for, I don't know, it's been at least a couple of years. And if Bob, if you're on, you can certainly fill in the blanks here.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to give a little background on this, we've been in discussion with the DOT for well over 2 years. And with the topography and that entire corridor out to County B, the DOT felt it would be best to, if we're going to go with an underpass through that, in that corridor, Linwood owns the two properties about 1,200 feet north of Rutland Downtown Line Road. And they felt that would be the best location for a trail system to connect east and west and, attack it that way in the next development, mainly due to the topography along the corridor of 51.
So that's kind of a quick update of what's going on with that. Obviously, that's in the future, and it's on the list of things for us to talk about at the DOT. So it's been noted, and we'll continue to, make that part of the discussion. And then ultimately, at some point, we're actually hoping to do the work, because I think we all agree with what Mike has said as far as the, getting across the highway is going to be important. So we appreciate the feedback. Any questions on the zoning at this point?
I have one quick question. It's not necessarily on the zoning, so I may be definitely in order here, but since we are on this subject and had this comment, and I'm looking at the map that's attached actually to our next item agenda because of my technological problems here. But the piece that is identified, actually, it's the west section of Rutland Downtown Line Road that is on what I'm looking at is identified as Interim Roadway. That is basically the connector at the top of where Nygaard ends, or where Nygaard turns into this, what's identified as Interim Roadway. What is the story or timeline with the existence of that piece? Do we know, is there anything definitive at this point, or is that a DOT ball, or?
I would say it's a DOT, but we did have some conversations at the last public hearing that was held out at the SWAC. And, part of that discussion was, the timing of this, what that looks like, and then, potentially trying to put a signal there and slowing down traffic. And once again, Bob, if you want to fill in the blanks, I know you were there longer than I was.
Sure, I can touch base on that. When I was there that evening, I guess it was April 21st at the SWAC, we met with a number of DOT staff. And the project manager in charge of that particular portion of 51 felt that if we could show this on a map and the city was in favor of this, it would help them tremendously to push for a controlled access there, whether it be a roundabout or signals. And then what they're really looking into at this particular time also is the speed limit. If they reduce the speed limit to less than 40 miles an hour or less, that width of that entire corridor through there narrows because the median narrows at that point. So that's the feedback we got from the DOT that evening at the SWAC. So this map, just to give you an idea, I think that the DOT is looking at the TIA now, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but I think once that analysis is done, this could move forward sooner than later and then eliminate Velcoman Way.
Does that answer your question, Alderperson Carabella?
Yes, I think to the extent that it can be answered, yes.
Okay, and like I said, we're meeting with them this week. There is a public meeting on Monday, the 28th, I believe it is. It's going to be virtual, and it begins at 6 o'clock. And the main purpose of that meeting is to really kind of review everything with the business owners, but certainly any other parties that are interested can attend that meeting virtually. And I would certainly be more than happy to send out the link. If anybody's interested, they could let me know. It'll be on the agenda when the agenda comes out, but you might want to just save the date on your calendar, so you can look for the agenda, or you can contact me, and when I get the link from the DOT, we'll send it out.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. It looks like I already have the link, by the way.
Okay. What does the interim road mean?
We are going to put in place a rural section road that will provide that connection from Nygaard, which is the east and north-south street, to 51, with the intention to close the Velcom Way between Nygaard and 51. So it provides the access for the neighborhood to the south and the town properties to the east, a way to exit at a safer location for the long-term plan to have a full access roadway, basically at Town Line, Rutland Dunn Town Line Road. But currently we do not have enough right of way, because the other portion of the right of way would be for the development to the north, the Linroad's property. So when that develops, or in condition with DOT with the reconstruct of 51, that's when that full street can be connected.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and then the other thing, Bob, if you can help me with this, is your development was how many acres again?
I think 68 total acres.
Yeah, and do you remember how many acres Linroods have?
They have 180 on the east side and 30 on the west side.
Okay, so that kind of gives you another thing. Yeah, the topography is kind of the driving issue. Future development is probably going to be, quite a few units north of this anyway. So I think it'll work out well, but yeah, ideally we would do it now, but it might be some efficiencies and be more cost effective if we can coordinate it with part of the DOT construction. So hopefully, we can work this out, and then there's always a question of paying for it, but we can figure that out too. The DOT's made it pretty clear to us that, it's not part of their plan, at least not at this point. So they probably wouldn't be interested in it. So it'd probably be, developer driven. But certainly the city council will have a say on that. So let's get back to the zoning, and then if we have any leftover questions, we can save that for the general development plan. Any other questions on the zoning part of it? All right, hearing none, we're looking for a recommendation to the city council. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to city council.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, and any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Item number 8 is the request by 51 West for approval of the general development plan for lots 1 through 6 and 16 through 18 within the 51 West neighborhood. Once again, there is a need for a public hearing, but certainly, Steve, if you want to cover this one before we go into a public hearing, that would be fine.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. So the remaining parcels, as noted, are in the red hatching. And the reason that we're looking at plan development with the GDP currently is some flexibility with the type of buildings looking to put in each lot, some reduction in setbacks between the buildings down to 20 feet minimum. But the bigger one is to relax some of the rear setbacks, with the impact of most of the lots that we're looking at here back up onto open space, stormwater, or additional outlots. So it doesn't have that case of needing that additional rear setback where it's onto another property. And that's the main reason for those rear setbacks that are in place. Where there are cases where there is 2 lots back to back, part of that thought to give back is there is design standards in the GDP that handle increased articulation and improvements that would mitigate that compatibility issue. But again, we're looking at looking at the bigger picture of a balanced neighborhood, especially on the west end where there's more variety of building types. But it is played out where the intensity, the nearby parcels are similar intensity or slightly lower. So it's not like where you're putting a single family next to a 5-story apartment building. So that's the flexibility we're looking here. There's another couple items such as if there were a use for the commercial property that would have cart carols, that it would fit within the existing standards for parking spaces, just for efficiency purposes. And the last item is allowing for more than one building on a single lot. That's a conditional use permit under conventional zoning. And you still have that caveat of the next stage of the I don't know if it's specific or precise here, implementation plan to review it in full. But that just opening the door that you can have multiple buildings on here with a minimum of 20-foot setbacks.
All right, are there any initial questions before we go into the public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the regular meeting and reopen for the public hearing. I don't believe anybody was signed up for this one. So we'll close the public hearing and reopen for the regular course of business. We are looking for a recommendation to council on this one. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners?
I have some questions, Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Barman.
So I'll start with my first one. It relates to lots 1 to 3, where the request is to allow townhouses of up to 4 units each. And I'm just trying to figure out the reason for needing to have that changed to 4 units. When it looks like, based on the plan, that if you had 2 units per townhouse, that equals your 12 units max for lot 1. And I don't really typically see townhouses where you have usually townhouses are split left and right with if they're 2-story, the first and second story are still part of 1 unit. So if that can be explained to me, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so the GD concept here that we're looking at is speculative. It's not what is being proposed. It shows the number of buildings and the character of that street. But in the general development plan, just like conventional zoning, it's allowing for certain permitted uses. So if Bob were to build or sell that property and the potential builder would prefer to do 3 4-unit townhomes on one of those lots versus 6 duplex, that would be a potential allowed use, not increasing the unit count in just the different kind of building type, but suggesting that it's only up to 4 units per building is actually below what is the conditional use allowance for the initial, I'm not sure which district it was that allowed for townhomes. I think it might have allowed up to 5 or 6. And so I reduced it to 4 to be more lower intensity to match what was shown in the concept plan. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I apologize for kind of being picky on this. It's just that we've got caught with other conditional development plans where we think we're approving a concept based on what's visually drawn. But then you've got text here that, I mean, we could ultimately end up with something completely different here than the 6 townhomes that you conceptualized. So I want the commission to know that this could ultimately end up being 3 larger units spread out rather than the 6 smaller units. If we approve the text as written, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Another question I have is on lot 4. What do you consider to be the rear of the building on that in terms of where the setback would be reduced?
It's along the north side, so adjacent to that outlot that has the path along the road.
So that is considered rear. So the front is along Bluegrass Drive?
That's correct.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And then when you say allow multiplex and apartments up to 24 units, what is typically allowed in an MR24? Is it up to 24 units anyway with that? I mean, I guess I'm wondering how much more units we're actually allowing through this GDP.
In conventional MR24, it is a conditional use to allow up to 24 units per acre. What's
Okay.
permitted by right is, I believe it's 12 units in the building, which is 2 different things. And I had this discussion with staff is one talking about units in a building versus the conditional use is talking about units per acre. And so on that lot 4, we're requesting it to be allowance of what is conditional use under the R24.
Okay, thank you. That helps. And then another question, Mayor, I think that might be my last is, I know on other developments, we've had discussions with the fire protection here in town about when it's when buildings become too close. And are they going to be comfortable with a 20-foot building separation? I'm trying to remember from other development proposals whether that became an issue once we start getting down to 20 feet between buildings.
I would say that on this project, we collaborated early with not only the fire department, but Stoughton Utilities and Park and Recreation Director Glenn as well. So we actually changed some of the way the roads were initially on this project. We actually had some private roads, and we were able to work with the developer to eliminate them, and as well as the dead ends that went with them. So I know Chief Rip felt a lot better about this plan.
So they weren't concerned about buildings being within 20 feet of each other?
I don't recall that coming up during our conversations. I could certainly follow up on that if you'd like.
Okay, I just would like to make, because I know I'm thinking in particular the property on Main Street that is owned by the Development Corporation, where they came in with the plan for having the multiple buildings on that site to be, I think that might have been 20 feet as well. And we had a conversation with the police or the fire department there. And I was just trying to recall what their solution was.
I can certainly follow up on that. If you guys send this to council, we can get the question prepared for their.
Thank you. That's all.
Should we be sending this to council if we don't have all the questions answered?
Well, I guess that's the choice of the commissioners. Like I said, we did review it with the fire chief and nothing came up. So, you know, as far as I know, everything's good, but you know, I guess that's up to you guys.
I'm hesitant to send this forward just because of the fact that having this discussion on council floor it's kind of like we're passing this buck along and not doing the job we were supposed to be doing at this level. You know, council should be looking at this commission as doing its due diligence to answer all the questions before it gets to them, and then they may have concerns afterwards, instead of, well, we need to move this on for expediency and we can let the council duke it out on the floor. And I'm tired of that, to tell you the truth. I'm weary of having those discussions with lengthy council meetings that go past 9:30, 10 o'clock at night because of such actions that were not being committed as they should be in the correct places. So like I said, I'm really hesitant to move this forward until the questions are answered.
I can certainly appreciate that. And had I known that this was going to be a question tonight, I certainly would have reached out to the fire chief and had him double check it. It's kind of hard for me to do it on the fly. You just heard him go by in the truck right now. So, you know, that's the difficulty of bringing this stuff up at the meeting. So, I mean, certainly if you get us the questions before the meeting, we'll attempt to get you these answers. In fairness to the developer, to make them wait a month for approval from this body for the next, you know, holds up the process. And they certainly have a timeline and some commitments that they're trying to meet, and this isn't really on them.
So Mayor, I have two follow-up questions there. As a commissioner, I didn't realize that we were supposed to look through the packets and provide questions in advance of these meetings, which I thought we would discuss these at the meetings. So I think we need clarification from that perspective in terms of our roles. But second, maybe you could help us out in the sense of what the conversation with the fire department was, if you were just looking at road circulation and roundabouts, which I know is a typical conversation you have, or whether they've seen the language for the spacing of buildings as part of that conversation. Because if they've seen the proposal that these buildings would be within 20 feet of each other and they didn't raise any issues, then we might essentially have our answer.
They've seen the maps. I don't know if they've seen the actual language that's in your packet, but certainly they provided what I felt was some valuable information from their perspective. As I mentioned earlier, when we were designing, you know, originally with the private roads that were dead ended, and even if they would be allowed, what those dead ends would look like. We're going through the similar process right now with riverfront development, with Mr. Brink's team, trying to get them some input. So that's part of our, you know, our normal thing. As far as, yeah, if you see something in your initial review of the packet and you want us to be able to provide an answer so we can keep things moving, we would encourage them ahead of time, because we want to make sure we give you guys the information you need to make an educated decision. It's the same thing for the council. And, you know, I guess I would apologize if you felt like that was something that we haven't covered. So I'm glad that that came up tonight. So now we kind of all know. So I guess it's kind of your preference on what you want to do with this. I would say that if you're not comfortable moving it on tonight, I would respectfully request, you know, a special meeting so we can keep this thing moving. You know, in the next couple of weeks here, I could get you the answer from the fire chief, and you know, have a meeting and you know, take another look at this instead of waiting for a month.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we advance this based upon the feedback from the fire department. Otherwise, can we make a motion to go ahead and advance this to city council based upon them, the fire department supplying the information, requested information.
We could do that. Is there a second
I'd
to
like
that
to make
motion?
that motion to do that.
All right. There's a motion. Is there a second? All right, I guess I'm not hearing a second on it, so I guess that motion would die here. So I guess at this point, what we would have to do is see if you guys are willing to get together for a special meeting for this issue. You know, probably the sooner the better. I think we're hoping to have it on the council meeting for next week.
I'll motion that we do not make a decision on this until after this commission receives the information from the fire department with their review of distances between buildings. And at which point in time, then we make a decision. Until that point in time that we do not make that, we do not move this forward, and that we do reconvene to make a decision when such information is available.
All right, did you catch all that, Michael?
I think so.
Okay, is there a second?
Long-winded, I'm sorry, Mike.
No worries.
I think we get the gist of it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on that motion? All right, and all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, so that motion carries, so we'll get that question and bring it back. Are there any other questions? Did anybody else have anything, I guess, before we close this item out? Or if you do, please send them our way so we can get you that information as well.
Just real quick.
I do have, well,
Go ahead.
sorry, I just have one quick question, and I'm just curious as to like timeline or staging of the chunks of this development. If there are thoughts regarding that.
The timing of what? I didn't catch the.
The timing of like the, you know, whether it would be all done in one large piece, whether it's, you know, just the 51, the west side of 51, or, you know, what the thoughts are on that at this point. I'm just curious.
Well, at this point, we have the preliminary plat approved, as you know, on the east side. So as I think was mentioned by Steve, you know, we're looking at final plat there. The west side, we've been having some discussions. I don't know if there's anything, Bob, from your team you want to update on that. I know it's going to CARPC for the stormwater management plan, I believe on July 8th, was it?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's kind of a lot of tracks going on this one. But certainly if you have an answer for Alderperson Carabella, that would be great.
To bring you up to speed a little bit on the west side, at this point, we're working out logistics to tie into the water main through Oak Opening Drive. And I think the timing of the west side will be determined with what gets worked out with the town of Rutland at some point to install that main down Oak Opening Drive for the water loop. And the east side, we're basically ready to go when this gets approved. So that's where we're at this point. And the other thing I wanted to add, for instance, like down in Nordic Ridge on our PUD lots, we got a 7-foot side yard setback. So we're only 14 foot apart with buildings there on the smaller PUD lots. And that's been approved in the past for fire and rescue. So that's one thing I wanted to add.
Okay,
Now, can I add just another note?
sure.
Okay. If there aren't other questions, and this is an important one, I guess my only statement on this is, if Plan Commission was going to accept what the fire chief says is a minimum standard for setback and not go beyond that, I guess our request is the reconsider, allowing it to be shown there if it is chosen to make that standard different. And council can approve based on that change in number. And then it's up to the developer to decide if that is a good direction ultimately. But if it weren't looking to go beyond what the fire chief is looking to have as a minimum standard, I guess it's more of a check and answer versus deliberation in this Plan Commission discussion. If that's the only item, we would like to keep moving forward, but I know there's been already a motion, but I just wanted to put that in stated.
This is Mr. Barman. That's kind of what I was asking. I guess I've never received from the city or from the fire chief a statement as to the effect of a minimum building separation. I just know this has come up in other developments where we've had to go back to the fire chief because we were putting buildings closer than what zoning allowed. Which typically behind some of these issues, I was trying to get clarification on that. And if somewhere the chief has come back and said that it's okay for buildings to be 20 foot apart, then I'm comfortable with it. I haven't heard that.
All right. Are there any other questions before we move on?
Not really a question so much. This is Al. Just a comment. I live about probably 5 minutes from this development, proposed development, and I rode my bike up there just to check it out. And the earlier discussions about access seem to be primarily focused on east-west across 51, which I think is needed. But and I don't know who this would fall on, but I think at some point somebody needs to look at access for pedestrians and bicycles from this development south, connecting to some of the stores, restaurants, and even neighborhoods if people want to go back and forth. I rode my bike up there again, and it was there was a few places where it's definitely very sketchy. So, and I don't want these residents to feel isolated necessarily. I think that's probably not a good thing. So that's my only comment. And I sent that earlier, but I thought I'd bring it up during the meeting.
Yeah, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, in the DOT plan, there is, I think it's a 10-foot wide sidewalk on both sides of the highway leading up that way. Does that sound right?
That is correct with the improvements.
Yeah,
That would be great.
yeah. So that is part of the DOT's plan, and that's something that we had requested based on, you know, previous feedback. So I think you're with us on that one.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, anything else before we move on? So we'll, at this point, we'll get an answer, and then if it's consistent with what this shows, we'll have to schedule a meeting, and we'll send out a notice or something to see when people are available. Probably won't take that long, but it's just a matter of you know, getting enough people together to have that discussion. Item number 9 is a request by Jennifer. Not sure the last name here. I'll say it's Paquin for a specific implementation plan amendment, SIP approval for exterior color and signage improvements at Walmart at 2600 State Highway 138. Is Jennifer on the line? I think there was somebody trying to get in earlier from Walmart.
Yeah, Amy, I think is on.
Yes,
Yep. there she is.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Michael. You can put the
Fantastic.
pictures up, and Amy, if you want to kind of walk us through this.
Sure. Good evening. So I am working with Walmart. I'm with PB2 Architecture and Engineering. I work with Jen Paquin. You got her name exactly right. We are working to complete a interior remodel and exterior updates to the Walmart store. The exterior updates primarily consist of updating the existing building signage. So as you'll see on the screen, the current Walmart logo and Spark are a rectangular shaped sign, and Walmart's new brand standard has gone to more of a square shaped sign. It's more compact. It does have a blue background. What you see there, that blue background is actually, in this case, an ephes background that will be built and attached to the wall, and the plastic signs will be attached to that ephes background, and all of those individual pieces, the lettering and the pieces of the Spark will be internally illuminated. So regarding the signage, since we're on that track, most of the signage that's being installed is replacement, nearly like for what's there now. There will be one new pharmacy drive-through sign that's proposed to be added on the front of the building, just to provide people coming in from the front of the store a direction to know which side of the store that pharmacy drive-through is on if they're unfamiliar with the site. So as you'll see there, those existing pharmacy drive-through signs, that's a like-for-like channel letter replacement there on the side of the building, but then a similar sign will be added just around the corner there on the front of the building as a directional sign for customers entering the site. The pickup sign that you see is also being replaced. It's also being relocated. It's moving to the other side of the front facade, closer to the outdoor area, as the pickup parking, the parking spaces designated for online grocery pickup orders is also shifting over to that side of the building to reduce the amount of traffic with the pharmacy drive-through and the pickup. It was becoming too congested there, so they've shifted that over to, if you're facing the building, to the right side. And so that sign is relocating over to help more clearly identify where pickup orders should be picked up. There's a pharmacy drive-through directional sign, you'll see, that's proposed, and the pickup sign moving to the other location helped clear the spot to create that directional space. So the existing signage that's on the building totals about 661 square feet, just over. And with this new sign package that we're proposing, we're reducing that by quite a bit. It's going down to 371, almost 372 square feet total. And that's just simply from the reduction of the main Walmart logo. So regarding the paint, in other jurisdictions around the country, Walmart has implemented much more blue accent paint than what is currently shown on this building. But this store has some special elevations that were approved when it was built. And so rather than try to incorporate the whole Walmart branding scheme, we tried to keep it as close as possible to original. So you'll see the grocery, the background behind the grocery and the pharmacy, rather than being blue, which would be another location that you may or may not have seen, is a dark gray. And then the existing brick, none of that will be painted. Only ephes materials and things like that will be painted. If there's CMU, that could be painted, but they will not paint any brick on this building. That's a very quick summary. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, thank you. Were there any questions from commissioners?
Just I guess one clarification. I was a little bit thrown off at the end there. I thought we were just approving signage changings. Are we actually approving paint changes as well?
I believe that was on the application.
Yes.
Double checking. Yes, both signage and paint were on there.
Yep.
And the paint, as you can see on the elevations, the paint that we're really speaking about are neutral grays, gray tones. There's very little of the Walmart brand blue, only behind the main brand sign.
All right, I see it now. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, any other questions? All right, then I guess I would entertain a motion at this point.
I'm sorry, I was muted.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm glad that they're keeping up appearances, so to speak. My question for them is, they're putting a lot of time and effort into the building, and it's great. And my question is part of that, will they be replacing the dead vegetative material that they have in the parking lots and on the perimeter of their buildings? Also, to spruce it up?
I can ask them, or that can be considered a condition of the approval if you like. That is not generally part of the remodel scope of work, but if it's something that they need to incorporate into the scope of work, now is certainly the time to do that, and you have the option of requiring that as the condition of the planning commission approval.
I personally would like to see that. I'm very frustrated when I see commercial developments put in their original plantings and then not keep them up. So I would like to, and seeing that this is such a high visibility commercial area, I would really like to see that kept up, because I think they have a really nice landscape plan for this building.
I can certainly pass it along to my contacts at Walmart. That would be the architecture and construction side of things. But if the preference is to have that documented in the planning commission minutes or the condition of approval, that's typical for us.
All right, any other questions? So I guess I'm looking to entertain a motion.
I would move to approve this with the stipulation that they consider upgrading their landscape to its original intent.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any?
I actually, can I have a question about the motion?
Sure, go ahead.
My question about the way that Commissioner Majewski said that they considered, does he want to make this a requirement, or just that they consider doing that? And can we make it a requirement?
That's what I'm not sure if we can make it a requirement. Can we?
Yeah, I guess the commissioners, I mean, it's up to you what you want to do.
I would vote for the amendment if we put the word and we require, since it would seem like, since they have gone to the trouble to do some landscaping work, but if it's not really, worked out, or, for whatever lack of a better term, and they're doing some work to improve the look of the whole location, I would think that would be something that they would want to address, and maybe they're just not aware of it. So if we made it a requirement, and if we can do that, I would like to see that added into the amendment.
I would happily prefer that myself.
All right,
It might soften the addition of the requirement if, rather than using the word upgrade, because it sounds like you're making them do something above and beyond what was originally approved for landscaping. It really, what you're trying to do is get them to restore the original landscaping as proposed and already approved.
Correct,
correct?
correct. Better wording, thank you.
Okay, so I think what I heard was Alderperson Carabella make an amendment to that effect, and then a second by Alderperson Majewski.
Correct.
All right, any discussion? We have to vote on the amendment first. Any
Can you read
discussion on
the,
it?
can you read the amendment as
first,
worded then? Can you read the motion, with all the amendments? I'd like to hear the motion one more time.
We'll be voting on the amendment. So Michael, do you have the amendment?
Yeah, I think Bill just amended it, the original motion to require that they restore, I guess, with Barman's added restore, require that they restore their landscaping. It's like
All right.
trees, etc.
Thanks.
So the way this will work is we'll vote on the amendment, and then if that passes, that becomes part of the actual motion. If it fails, we go back to the original motion as it was worded. Any questions on the amendment? Hopefully we didn't confuse you, Al.
No, I'm not confused. I was just considering whether it was really appropriate or not, but that's a newbie, so.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, so that carries. So we have the original motion as amended. So basically, we're saying that we'll approve the signage under the condition that they'll also restore the landscape to its original form, or however that read. Any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, that motion does carry. Thank you very much. What's the timetable for the work?
This should be starting, I would say, come August, September.
Okay. Yeah, if
Once
you
we can get all the required building permits in hand and get a contractor on board.
All right, and if you need a copy of anything from us, we can get that from Michael.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a
Yep,
good evening.
Thank you. You too. All right, next item is number 10, which is a request by John Gallagher of Gallagher Tent and Awning for approval of a freestanding canopy to load and unload patients at the Nazareth House at 814 Jackson Street. And it looks like we have a picture here. Is there somebody here from either Nazareth or Gallagher that wants to talk about this?
Not seeing anybody.
All right, so basically, this is in addition to the building, or is this a replacement?
No, this is not attached to the building. It's a standalone canopy, just a requirement for housing and urban development. I think maybe they're going through a process to refinance or something like that. So it's a requirement as part of that for exiting. They're going to be spending a lot of money on interior and exterior for exiting and things like that.
All right, anybody have any questions on this one?
Hi.
I have two. But
All right.
go ahead, Al.
Oh, I saw that one comment was the signage wasn't allowed on the front. Is that it? Is that correct?
That's
That
true.
It had to be on the building? Okay. And is that even if it was part of the fabric?
That's
So it's
true.
like-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. I thought it looked nice myself. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Barman, did you have something?
Yeah, I had two, but Al just answered my first question, or asked my first question about whether we were actually evaluating this with the sign on or off. But my other is, I guess I'm all for this on, some kind of sheltered entrance, not only because it's required, I just think it makes sense. But the shape of it, I just don't know. If someone from Gallagher was here, I'd ask them if there was some other way of designing it, because one, it's blocking the windows behind, but it also just, the shape of it doesn't relate at all to the architecture of the building. I guess I would hope that there'd be some other way of providing that same kind of canopied shelter in a way that actually fit the building. But I can't, that it has to do with the way it's sloped, because there's no other, from what I can see, it doesn't fit the architecture behind or around.
All right, any other thoughts or comments? Okay, what would you like to do with this one? We do, they're looking for approval. Are you feeling comfortable to do that?
I'll make that motion to go ahead and accept that as presented.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any- Okay, and any opposed?
I'll just abstain, just because I would have preferred a little different shape.
Okay, one abstention is duly noted. Next item is a request from Dave Rysop for extraterritorial jurisdiction approval for a certified survey map to combine properties at 1907 Barber Drive, Town of Dunn. There's a map up here, and just so you know, Al, these extraterritorial jurisdictions we call ETJs. The city has a boundary around the city. It's 1.5 miles where we can, make approvals. I think state law would allow us, if we chose to go up to 3 miles. But typically, if somebody's combining lots, or maybe they're, putting a mother-in-law suite on a house that's in the township, or maybe there's a family farm and they want to build the house for the parents. We frequently see these requests. So that's kind of what an ETJ means. It has to be approved by us and the township, and maybe, I think, the county as well. Does that sound right, Michael?
Yep.
City attorney says we really don't have a whole lot of reason not to approve them, but sometimes if it's more like a bigger development and we don't think it provides a cohesive plan to what we're trying to do on the edge of the city, we could challenge it. I haven't had a case since I've been on the plan commission where that's come into play. Others may have had experiences, but that kind of at least gives you a little bit of background on how these things typically work. On this one here in particular, did anybody have any questions or comments?
Just one, Mayor. On this particular map, it's harder for me to tell what is actually being combined. Usually we'll see a lot 1, lot 2. Is what being combined here, that what's currently in the road reservation area is being combined with lot 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, there is a resolution in the packet, and we would need a recommendation of that resolution to the council.
I'd move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Item number 12 is a request from Kurt Brink for a plan development concept plan review for the riverfront development. And on this one tonight, Michael, we're not looking for any action, are we?
No, it's just a concept.
All right, so I think Kurt and some of his team members are here tonight to go through the plan. How'd you like to start it off?
Probably right where we are. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Doug Hirsch is in Portland, Oregon right now, and John Thousand, my civil engineer, is finishing up a project in California. So I'll be on the one tonight for the concept plan. What you see here right now is the total site of basically 10.48 acres. The left side, units 1 and 2 is what we're proposing for the first phase. As we move along in here, you'll see some of the concept designs. That's the phase 1. The first building being the 26 units, and the second building being 48 units. What we're doing in here is we're having a lot of 3-bedroom units is going to be in the project as we're working towards that. We're moving more towards that for families. And if everybody remembers when we had the original public hearing at the fire station, there was some testimony of people trying to move in the Stoughton while they're looking for a house and put their kids in school, but there was no place to have any 3 bedrooms. So this is part of what it is. We've also have comments from some people that their kids are gone and they would like to stay in Stoughton, but they would like to find a place big enough to live and wouldn't necessarily want to move to Madison or another place. So that's part of what we're doing here to make it not just a lot of 1 bedrooms. The first phase here, as we run through this, we've had a lot of meetings on this whole site dealing with our civil engineers and also with the city's consultants from Strand on how we're going to do the utilities and tie them all in the stormwater retentions. As you see this plan right here, the comments back from the fire department, which are completely rational, as you see, as you come to the right, we go up to the surface parking, we're going to need to do some type of T in there right now. So when a fire truck comes in, we can move it in and set up. So we'll do that. The other comments from the fire also is as we come down into the parking garages, there's a 1 entrance, but they would like to create us to have just another way in or out, which makes sense. And because as you know, in exiting is if one area is blocked, is to open up the other area. So this is here. Michael, if you can move to some of the exterior elevations.
Yep.
Okay, this is the building that would be on the corner of South and 4th Street. Now, how this evolved was through quite a few meetings with the redevelopment authority. Initial concept I handed in there was bigger houses. We went through different things and we really evolved to the design because what the RDA wanted and the mayor wanted was, let's give a statement on the corner as you turn down Main Street to go there. What this is, as we evolve through it, this is kind of a duplication of what I call the blacksmith building, which was torn down farther down South and 7th Street. What we've done here, we've added 1 floor to it, maintain the integrity of it, and give the brick. We really like the style of that building. So in a sense, we're building it brand new, but honoring the old legacy to it. And it's a 3-story building, and then that upper part is kind of a loft area for the apartments, and it's on all the sides, it's all brick as we're doing it, because what's critical as we go down there, the first buildings are the most critical because you have to set the tone for what's going there. Because right now it looks a little run down and everything there, but I think as we evolve through here, we're really trying to make quite a statement building that sets the tone for everything in there. Could you go to the next one, Michael?
Yep.
This here becomes what we're trying to do is more of a classic warehouse. Look, what we're trying to do is evolve the buildings as we work through to where it looks like it's been different buildings over time and not just one big project. And that's some comments we got back from the RDA. So the bottom part is 3 stories and we have a 4-story setback along River Road. And then you see the power station in front. And when we were in front of landmarks, we have our buildings on 4th Street set back enough to where as you drive down 4th Street, you can still see the power station as it works through here. If we could go back to the full site plan, that'd be great.
Sure. This
So,
one work?
yeah, that'd be perfect. So as we've evolved through this, for lack of a better word for a road, we just call it River Road running through here. And then working with city engineering, Strand, your consultants in that, and to keep the improvements, not wasting any money, since River Road would take the water main, the sewer, and everything. What the beauty of this site, at the top of the site, South Street, the elevation is 854 above sea level. Then we go down to the river at 835. So we have a normal slope. The advantage to this site, cutting across from building 2 across the river, just in front of the power station, you have your major force main that leads down to the sewer plant. There is the capacity within the existing force main, which I think is a 24-inch main, to handle this whole site going into it as we do it. So we've set our elevations of our basements to where we gravity feed into it completely. And then as we run the water back through to meet the fire demand as it goes through. You can't see it on here because we're still working on the part of it. As we get into the next phases to the right, the center part is what we call where 6th Street would be if you took it all the way through. But what we're doing there, we're really landscaping that to try to make more of an entrance into this project that's more exciting because of the elevation change as we wind through it landscape. And also it helps us with our stormwater and the mitigation of it, because as we line up to that open area with the river walk that's been planned through there and with Strand having done that, and with the bridge coming across 6th Street, what we were trying to do is to where, well, here's this bridge, or if you come from Mant Park, where's it going to, but how can you flow through this? Because 6th Street lines right into the back where the Opera House and Fire Station, but also it lines into just to the right of this thing here where the gazebo is, where all the music is. So we're trying to really tie it into where all intermixes in it. This development ties into Mant Park and use the other amenities that you're putting into it. The other nice thing is when we had some of the other hearings is that some of the people live in the single houses above that liked in the sense that they can keep upgrading their houses because there's some nice houses up there, and what's nice, there's some nice single family neighborhoods up there. So what we're trying to do is blend it all together, get the first phase in, get the proper increment into it. But the other factors you see across from building 2, we've kept that all open. So the site opens up as we're working with the RDA, what are the sight lines, et cetera. So where I've got the clubhouse there, we used to have a building there. So we went and put the clubhouse there as more of a central place for all the residents to work in the pool, looking at the river, but also being lower to the buildings up above of a better viewpoint. The point, the way we're working through the developers agreement, we had fantastic interaction working with the RDA here. What we would do is we go into our next building, since we start this, we would go and start getting the critiquing from the whole group on what the next building should be. So we all evolve into it because we got some great ideas from it. So, and then as you see on the bottom along the river, those are the retention ponds, but actually what they are, they show blue, but they are actually dry during the day because that's one of the issues that came from the fire department. So Dane County is coming under, Madison came in the last year, very strict stormwater ordinance, and Dane County will be implementing that, and we match that stormwater ordinance. So basically what it is, if there is a major rain, is how are you holding the water on the site? And how is it releasing off with, that it stays on site, doesn't run off? I used to be a commissioner of capital regional planning, and the issue becomes here, you're trying to keep these streams more cold water. And so we're able to mitigate it as it runs through. And so we've modeled this to meet all of those requirements as it runs through. And then we've run the pedestrian path that the city is doing. We've matched the elevations with that, with our engineers and Strands engineers working together to where that's all complete as we move forward. So this is why we wanted to get you on the concept plan as we work through, as we come back to with buildings 1 and 2 to be more, as we try to do a general development on the oversight to get predictable as we work through, but do the SIP on 1 and 2. And so that's basically what we've got for tonight, and looking for your feedback.
All right, thank you, Kurt. Any initial thoughts or questions from commissioners?
Just one, I really like this idea. When I first got here, I rode my bike down there to the old powerhouse and I said, geez, this site is gorgeous. Surprised they haven't done something with it. So really exciting to see this. A question, I guess, in general, is this, being it's going to have a waterfront, a little bit of a water view, is it envisioned that this would be more upscale or more towards affordable or somewhere in between?
This is more market upscale here.
Okay, that's kind of what I assumed. Okay, thank you.
That's what we almost have to be with construction costs. The other thing that we went in here, and which was way too long ago when some people posted, we're a great distance from the river with our retention ponds up in front, where we're a few hundred feet back before we get to the first buildings. And so what this does here is this, and what your Parks Department's been trying to do, and what the RDA's been working on, what you guys are getting grants for, that is public. The river walk down there is not private. It's public as it works through from the grants you're doing. And it's the bicycle trail that eventually tie through, and it helps Stoughton become a destination, but it also, the residents there can just interact with it, and the river starts becoming an asset instead of being just closed off from it. Instead of us moving all the buildings down to the river, but basically to deal with FEMA, the stormwater, and the different definitions of water quality, we're able to try to maintain the highest water quality as it goes through on this here also.
So I have one question and then a couple of comments.
Okay.
My first question, am I understanding correctly that the Commons building is for residents of the buildings that you're developing? It's not a public building, it's a private building.
That is correct.
Okay. And that makes sense. So my comments here, I really like the plaza design that you got up along, that lines up with 6th Street, that
Yes.
essentially connects up toward the gazebo and the park near the fire station. I really like that. I like the fact that this whole development is focusing on residential without a lot of insert of retail commercial. I think there's a temptation sometimes of trying to put retail along the riverfront. In a lot of cases, and in other communities that might make sense, but I think here, I think it's more important to keep the retail downtown and have this be a great place of more people living proximate to downtown, which I think is going to put the pressure on the city to make 4th Street better over time, to connect people up 4th Street to the core of the commercial area of downtown, as well as, continue to have that strong 6th Street connection. So I like all that. I also want to give you kudos for Building 8. If I'm guessing correctly, Building 8 is shaped the way it is to provide better views of the river and the riverfront for people who reside within that building. I think it's creative and unique to the way you've lined up the buildings to provide as best views of the riverfront for as many units as possible.
Another thing that doesn't show in this, because we're just two-dimensional, the buildings along South Street are a good 20 feet higher than the lower levels of the other buildings as we work into this. And what's going to be really nice is we bring this back through, we'll have the 3Ds to show that. You made a very interesting comment on the commercial. Commercial is a very difficult product to deal with now, and us that have our people that rent from us in the commercials, they're having a tough time right now. The one thing I liked about this site, and the reason we weren't going to put a commercial in, you've got, what I liked about it, your main street is a great street and has fantastic potential. So the beauty of this development is people drive through it, go down, then you go home. Oh, like a day like today, you go home and just walk down Main Street. You go on the bars, you can do some shopping, and then some different of the retailers, like even Brian from the Cheesery and them, they'll stay open at night, and it ends up becoming more of a destination place on Sunday. And I think some excitement that's even being proposed for the old movie theater is that Sunday there might be people come down here. One of my oldest stepsons, they had a place upstate New York, and East Chatham had a downtown like this, and everybody was down there on the weekends. So that's why I didn't want to compete with the retail down there, because I've always felt if they can get an extra 10 people a day in, it's unbelievable what they can do. And that's what we modeled this way to do it, to enhance the downtown. For us to build new commercial and somebody to qualify that and try to make it, it's really tough. But you guys are working real hard and keep trying to improve the downtown. And I think you're getting some nice new momentum going down there.
All right, any other thoughts or questions from commissioners? So I think the idea was to at least get it in front of you and kind of see where we're at on this. Those that are on the council or the RDA, probably, if you've watched the meetings, have kind of seen where we're at as far as the site and, you know, the material maintenance plan that has been worked on to get us to the point where we're comfortable, you know, putting the rest of the language in the agreements. Once that's done, I would anticipate, you know, some of the approvals will be coming through here as well. And we just kind of want to get you familiar with what's going on down there. So that's why they're here tonight. So any last questions on this? All right. Well, thanks, Kurt.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, item number 13 is a request from Jessica Vaughn, JSD Professional Services for Plan Development, Conceptual Plan Review for Kettle Park West, Lot 27. So this one here is, you know, we just kind of want to get you guys up to speed on where they're at on this one. We've worked with Forward Development staff wise to get to this point. We wanted to get it in front of you so you could kind of see what we've been working on. Jessica, are you on the line?
Jessica is not. This is Brent Ellison with Forward Development Group.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Brent.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to kind of run through the concept plan here and answer any questions, comments, and get your initial feedback from the commission so that we can incorporate that and move forward. So what you see before you is lot 27. It's 6 buildings, and each building is 4 units. There's 2 2-bedroom units and 2 3-bedroom units. They are 2-story structures, so they've got a residential mass and scale and finish to them. And they're all along a shared alley off Cromwell Court. So this is part of the larger Kettle Park West development where you have alley lots and single family residents. So this offers kind of an extra product type that isn't there right now to a more affordable option with regards to those single family units that we have there. To your south, you have the True by Hilton Hotel, and you have the retirement home. I forget the name of the home there, but
Park Senior Living.
Senior living, thank you. And So we just wanted to present this and get your feedback with regards to, setbacks and buffers around the buildings. If there's any desire for connectivity, I believe that had been mentioned in the past. Any questions or feedback on unit style, mass, and scale. This is likely to be a planned development. Our density is consistent with the current zoning. We have 24 units on the entire site. There will be some amenity space programmed, such as like a grill station or bike repairs, things like that. Each unit is provided with a garage stall, and those garages are actually fairly wide. I believe they're about 12 feet wide, so there is decent storage inside that garage stall for both a car and bike or other things. And then there's also parking in front of each stall for the guests and such. With that, I guess I would open it up to any questions or feedback.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners?
I just had one question. I'm really ignorant on this Kettle Park West development. I apologize for that, but in the development as a whole, is there any sort of shared community outdoor gathering space that's been planned?
There is a planned park on it'd be the west end of the larger development along Oak Opening as it heads down towards 120, 138.
Do we have a map that shows us exactly where this is located versus what is proposed for where the park is and things like that, so we can get a better orientation?
There was a vicinity map. I don't know, Michael, if you have the capabilities of bringing that up, or even just a Google Maps too, maybe. Well, that might not help.
It may help, Al.
Well, I run my bike out there too, so I'm familiar with kind of where it's at. But right now, there's not a whole lot going on other than grading out there from what I could see.
And actually, you might be able to pull up our website for the meadows. That gives an overview of the lot layout and everything.
All right, just give us a moment while we do that.
All right, well, I'll ask a couple of questions while we're finding the other map. Off of what you have colored here, there's a note there for the multi-use path. And I was wondering how you kind of can explain to us how I think it's what lot 27 we're calling this, how that ties into that multi-use path.
So that multi-use path is, it connects Cromwell Court down to Jackson to provide access down there. It also would also be the front of the alley lot products that you see along between, there's an alley running parallel to that multi-use path to the northwest of it. So it's really collector for those alley homes, and then to provide that connection from Cromwell down to Jackson.
So I'm understanding.
Sorry, go ahead.
So just so I'm understanding what's designed here, between the multi-use path is where the wording is, and between the colored area of lot 27, that's actually an alleyway or a roadway surface. That's not green space.
That is green space. The alleyway is northwest. You'll see by the letter C of Cromwell, there's a driveway ramp. That's where the alley road connects to Cromwell.
Okay.
So yes, between the multi-use path and the lot 27 lot boundary, where it says 44-foot public easement for water sanitary, that is green space.
So I guess my question is, why wouldn't we have a stronger tie on the end of your parking lot above building 3 directly into the multi-use path there, where you've got those it's almost like you've got bushes there to prevent people from direct access to the multi-use path versus having them have to go up along the driveway, back up the Cromwell Court to be able to access the multi-use path.
Sure. Would a better option maybe be to be off the sidewalk that's on the side of building 3? I'd like to provide some buffer for, you know, for headlights or anything like that from cars. in
Sure.
building 3. But if you came off that sidewalk that ties to the side of the building and crosses over the multi-use path.
I would like to see some stronger connection, because even if I wanted to go up to the multi-use path via your driveway, there's no sidewalks on either side of your driveway that connects back up to Cromwell Court.
See, Todd,
And
this is
so-
Dave with JSD. We had that connection made at one time. That's something we can certainly put back into the site plan. As that sidewalk that would directly west of building 1 and 2 at the entry there would continue to across and perpendicular. We could create a perpendicular connection into that proposed multi-use path for the alley product. That's something we can do.
I'd like that, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings at all either if you still had some sort of sidewalk connection up to Cromwell Court, because I know through your entire development, we're trying to encourage people to walk the sidewalks and enjoy the porches and walk the neighborhood as well, besides the multi-use path. And it just seems like we don't have a connection to the rest of the neighborhood pedestrian wise. It's you got it internally, but
Yeah.
then it's just vehicles going from your parking lot up to Cromwell Court.
Great point, and we can certainly make that happen, and as well as a connection to the sidewalk, so they're not walking on the pavement.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And then before I turn it over to everybody else, just to be consistent with my earlier questions on another development site, how far apart are your buildings from each other? Is this a
20
30-foot?
they're 20 feet apart.
These are 20 feet. So as soon as we are able to get confirmation from the fire chief, we'll know whether or not, as a general rule, they're comfortable with that kind of spacing within Stoughton.
Yeah, and the fire chief has joined the call here. So Josh, if you want to address this one, you certainly can.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I've talked with my code enforcement officer, Deputy Chief Mark Miller. Code-wise, we're okay with it. There's other spots within the city where we are approaching the same kind of distance, so we're okay with it. We've got, as that development progresses, we've got some recommendations on where we would like to see hydrants placed. But as far as the spacing goes, we're comfortable with that.
Just for the commission, if I can ask, what is the minute? Do you have a minimum distance you'd want to see between buildings? Or is it 20 a minimum, or does it go down to 14 or 10, or what should we be looking for as commissioners when we have concept plans in front of us?
Well, really we don't have a number in mind for the fire department wise. We just, whatever follows the International Building Code side of things. And I don't have that number in front of me. But with these buildings and the way they're configured, we're anticipating them being sprinklered anyways, being four unit buildings. So I think more of the issue distance wise has to do with the comfort of the people in them looking out their window and seeing another building that close.
This is very similar with what was built in Oregon, in Bergamot, same product. Fiduciary had developed that housing there, but we can certainly provide photos and more information as we go through the process here as well. But it's trying to create the affordability. The buildings 1 and 2, we can provide more separation, but that may take away from the green space amenity area. But again, we'll take all the recommendations and incorporate it into the site plan going forward.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Dave and Josh. Did you guys have any other questions about this, or is this map good enough? I did find another one. If you want, we can put it up.
I had one other question for Chief Rip, as long as he's still on the line there.
Yep.
Chief, that sort of, that kind of dog leg driveway that they've got going in there with the trees planted. I mean, I'm not sure if those trees are meant to be put in there, but does that give you enough access for your, especially for your long trucks to get in there?
I really am not enthused about that type of driveway, especially our ladder truck getting that in there. I guess I wasn't ready for it tonight, but trying to figure out what our distances are in there. Are we looking for the developer? What is the distance across that driveway? Is that about?
It's a 32-foot wide driveway.
Okay. And then from the, what we'll call the island closest to on the edge of the driveway, the island closest to the multi-use path, down right at the edge of that island there, that tree, what is the distance across that's free of parking?
That to make that turn, I think that that alley between the parking along the buildings that would be parallel with the faces of those is about 26 feet. We can spread those buildings further apart. And I was even thinking about putting some type of kind of a boulevard entry or something that would provide a bigger a radius for you as you come in. And that's something we can look at as part of our apparatus worksheet or our turning movement exhibit.
Okay.
Depending on your WB, I'm sure you probably want a 52 or a WB template run on that site plan at some point.
Yes, we would. We've got some recommendations where we'd like hydrants. And I guess on parking, that's what my concern was in looking at this. Kind of as the city.
We can have Josh that I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can probably have that drive calling it where you kind of get rid of the kink, the dog leg a little bit, and have that come in more of an angle as it leaves the parking field there, so it doesn't create that hard turn.
Okay, that would help a lot because that's a lot of swinging trucks around.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and that's certainly something we can modify on the site plan going forward. And as far as the hose length and stuff for you, having another hydrant at the back of the lot would be something that you could certainly provide feedback for us.
Okay.
So
yeah,
who should Chief Rip be talking to regarding the proposals that you're discussing?
What I would propose, Mr. Mayor, would be then for us to update the concept plan and work with Chief Rip and provide those revisions and get his feedback on the base of the truck that he plans on with the hydrant locations so they can do some takeoffs.
Okay.
So I could provide Chief Rip with that with that exhibit.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from the commissioners?
I would just like to comment, throw my 2 cents worth in for the connectivity of the sidewalk. I think that's real important, and I can see, numerous opportunities here for making that happen, either, from the sidewalk that's by building 3 over to the multi-use path and the sidewalk that's on the other side of the parking area from that connecting to the multi-use path, and then just, parallel or alongside the actual driveway entrance connecting over to sidewalk, but just really more of that.
Yeah, I think we can provide a multiple locations to where buildings 1 and 2 would have a dedicated access, as well as buildings 3 through 6 that would have another connect, where they don't have to cross the parking lot to get to the multi-use path. We can make all those connections work.
All right, we appreciate that. Anybody else have any other thoughts or comments?
One last bit with the trees that are within all the parking stall areas in there. I appreciate that trees are incorporated within the impervious surfaces like that. But when you get up to the point of selection of trees, it's really important not to plant any of the sap droppers in there. I think your residents will really appreciate that.
Yeah, low maintenance trees, obviously, and they're more durable for the parking areas, meaning with salt and snow pushed into those islands, and that's a good observation and great. We'll be mindful of that.
Having those in there, is that going to make snow removal fairly difficult?
Yeah, I think this was our landscape architect had thrown those in there. I would prefer not to have those and have striping so they can push snow to the east. But we just try to get the points. I'm sure that's what they threw on some vegetation just to soften the site plan, but I would prefer not to have any trees within the parking areas.
I'm assuming that you're an engineer.
Yes, I'm
I
not
could
the
tell.
landscape architect.
I can tell by your comments about not having trees and basically scraping it clean so that it's easy for your functions. Unfortunately, in this world that I live in, and majority of other people, they actually enjoy having some aesthetic and not a blacktop sea.
That's fine, Tom. I agree. I think it's just easier for plowing, but I think they can pull that snow off and still make those maneuvers. I agree with you that it does look more appealing, more aesthetically appealing to the resident.
It will also enhance the property values down the road when those trees mature.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or thoughts? Okay, well, I'm sure you'll be seeing probably another variation of this at some point, but we appreciate the feedback from the commissioners. So we'll see what the team comes up with. Next item is also from JSD, and that's for conceptual plan review for Kettle Park West lots 2 and 3. And you might recall that this was originally 2 lots, and then we did a CSM and divided it into 3. Lot 1 is where the 3-unit commercial is slated to go with a paint store and a sub shop. And we're here to talk about lots 2 and 3. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So what we're proposing to do here is to have a multifamily 76 units, 4 stories in lot 2. This would be a 4-sided architectural unit, and the density would be 25 units per acre. The intention here is to have a lot of surface or street activity along the building and connectivity. If you recall from our lot 4 comments or discussions, there was talk of north-south sidewalk connectivity. So we did incorporate that along the east side of the building since we weren't able to incorporate that along Kettle Park Way, we wanted to bring that over here, and that provides a nice kind of street front transition between the commercial of lot 1 and the more residential of lot 2. Or ultimately, this becomes a larger mixed use development in essence that's split between the 2 lots. the site plan is really respectful of the wetland. We want to preserve that as a feature, as opposed to mitigating and bulldozing that to create larger development areas. So that's where we're going with the 4-story structure that will actually mirror pretty well with the True by Hilton across the street, which is also a 4-story structure. For lot 3, we're looking at a commercial tenant that has interest. It's a more of a restaurant use that would then open up views to the west with the ponds and the kettle and such like that. We do have amenity space plan for this as well, with regards to, you know, grill stations and fire pits and things. And we plan to orientate those along the wetland to, again, pay respect to that wetland and utilize that as an amenity to these lots. So we'd look for your feedback on with regards to the land use. You know, a comp plan amendment would be necessary, and we understand that, to allow residential use in this commercial center. Also looking at parking. You know, we have less than 2 stalls per unit provided. We are at 131 units or stalls, and required would be the 152 to get a 2-to-1, 2 per unit. There is an opportunity that we could explore of shared parking, since we do kind of have offset hours with adjacent users. And ultimately, we just wanted to get your feel for the building mass and scale. Like I said, this will be a 4-story structure, but it will be 4-sided architecture, since it is will be viewed from all sides. And then lastly, wanted to talk about setbacks along Jackson Street. We have 25 feet shown, but wanted to get your takes on if you wanted that reduced to get more of a street feel to it, or how that orientation is preferred. With that, I open up to questions or comments.
And to add to Brent's presentation, I think that the 4-story product, as far as the roof or the building height, wouldn't be any, the elevation wouldn't exceed the 4-story hotel just to the north here. We'd also look at a flat roof proposed, because it's within a commercial area. So we would keep those roof, the building elevation probably would not exceed 45 feet in height. Chief Rip, I think that might be something that you may want to weigh in on, as well as the connectivity to paths and stuff. That'll be showing up on a more detailed plan that really wraps the wetland and the amenities to a trail that ultimately goes around the kettle, which is being proposed in, I think, phase 2 of the single family housing. So there'll be a lot of connectivity to the larger trail system as well. Thank you.
All right, any thoughts from commissioners or Chief Rip?
I have a couple.
Go ahead, Tom.
First of all, I applaud the idea of having shared use parking lots. I know that our zoning says that we need 2 for everything, and that basically we're making seas of asphalt for extra runoff and problems down the way. There's no reason we can't share things and be a little bit tighter and add a little more green space to the world. As far as setbacks go, I applaud them being closer to the road, so that you get in this area more of a feel for a streetscape and not a suburban feel.
All right, anybody else?
And with that, Tom, just that first floor, those lower units would be activated to the street, as well as to the east elevation and the around the first floor and the entire building. So you'll feel like you can walk up to your unit, almost like a townhome feel. And these are going to be workforce housing, that would be very affordable for the community based on size and unit mix. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
All right. Any other commissioner thoughts or questions?
I have one question and then at least one comment. So can you remind me on Jackson Street through this section, is there a sidewalk on the south side of the streets that is frontage for these two lots?
Yeah, there's a 10-foot wide bituminous path. That's a multi-use path that runs all along Jackson. I believe it's on the south side, or is it on the north side? I can't remember. Brent, would you know?
I'd have to double check. I think the multi-use path is on the north side, and I think it's a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side, but I would have to verify.
That's how
I would.
I think you're right.
I would encourage you to include that in the next concept plan, because if we're talking about connecting these lots and these units to the street and the sidewalk, then I think it's important to kind of show that connection. Because right now, I can't get a feel for that connection here, and I don't want to run into the same problems that we had with the commercial unit over on lot 1, where we later had to have more of a detailed conversation about that connection once we saw or started getting into the details. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the rationale of switching lot 2 to residential, because it does throw me a little bit here that we've got 1-story commercial in lot 1, then also in a 4-story residential in lot 2, and then back down to 1-story commercial in lot 3. And it's starting to get a little herky-jerky for me.
Sure, Todd, I can understand that. It really was 2-part. First, really was there's a commercial tenant or commercial entity that is very interested in lot 3 and said that that was the lot that they wanted. And ultimately, we wanted to encourage as much commercial as we could. As I'm sure you know, commercial is the landscape for commercial and office has been difficult of late, so we didn't want to create any more difficulties there. But the other aspect of it was that lot 2, as far as the lot orientation around the wetland and such, just really provided itself to be a better orientation site-wise to fit that structure on there, as opposed to lot 3 would be a very linear building that would block a lot of the views into the kettle and things like that. So it's a difficult site in orientation. And
yeah, I do appreciate the preservation of the wetland and the attempt to utilize it. I guess I would encourage you to right now, if we're utilizing for, let's say, for all the residential in lot 2, the 4-story residential, they have views of the wetland, but they're really disconnected from the wetland by that parking lot. So all they're going to be doing is kind of looking at it. I mean, we don't even have any kind of, at least in your concept here, any kind of pedestrian walkway on the far side of the parking lot to get them a little bit up more close and personal with the wetland in terms of just a way to get out and about to enjoy their location. And I don't know exactly how that would lay out here or not, but I want the wetland preserved and I appreciate using it for sight lines, but I think there might be other ways that we can kind of incorporate into the site as well. And I'll have to think more about the 1-story, 4-story, 1-story a little bit more.
so to address both of those, we can absolutely incorporate and show, you know, as you said, we should show the sidewalk along Jackson. We'll show more connection across that drive lane. We could throw some islands to connect across and things. And then regarding the 4-story, would it be helpful if when we start to do elevations and stuff, we plan to do maybe an upper story that is a different facade material to break up the verticality of that?
That certainly will help. But I'm also just thinking, I'm all for mixed use. So having workforce housing near where they might potentially be working in and amongst the commercial, I'm not against that. So I don't feel the need to always segregate commercial out. So that's not my primary issue here. It's just I want to make sure that when we're on, because we don't get to see the three-dimensional with these concept plans. So I'm just trying to visualize it. So yeah, keep that in mind, because it might be that somehow being able to break up the facade a little bit might help that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for your comment.
Oh, I have another comment, if I may.
Sure, go ahead, Tom.
You know, the way this is shown right now, it's 2D and it's flat. And we see no topography lines at all. I'm pretty sure there's a pretty darn steep drop off at the edge of those parking lots, or am I wrong?
The drop off, you have the wetland line, then you have the no grade, which is the shaded line beyond the wetland line. And that's pretty much the top of the bank.
Okay.
And then it's pretty much flat, Tom, up on top of the on the terrace. It's almost a 2% slope from the streets back to Jackson Street.
Okay.
So again, I guess we could have shown the contours in there, but I think what we can do is provide an exhibit is prior to moving forward, showing some of the maybe a massing diagram to Todd's point, and then showing the connectivity and all the amenities around the wetland and how that's going to connect with the pedestrian activity as it for the tenants, so they can get good access to those areas. There's a lot of little pockets that'll have lookouts that'll also connect to the regional trail system to the west, and that ultimately that goes around the kettle. So I think we can provide more information as it relates, and that would address your concerns about grade as well, and in massing to Todd's point, to make sure that he can visualize that as you're coming down Jackson Street. And I think the user that we're negotiating on the lot 3 is a public space where they're going to want a garden and stuff. So we're going to have to incorporate this. This is very generic as it relates to a site plan. We just want to get discussion and get you guys to provide some feedback prior to moving forward. So in talking to them, they want a garden, they want a way that they could have entertainment next to the kettle, and access to all the single family walking down Jackson Street that would be able to frequent their establishment. So we'll learn more about their site plan as well once we get into more detail, but we can provide additional information that certainly could address not only grade, but massing and connectivity to trails.
All right, any other questions from commissioners?
Dave, is that a single buyer that's looking at that commercial space on lot 3, or more tenants than that?
A single buyer that would like to own their parcel, so that would be a land sale for us. It would be a fantastic use for not only the whole development, but for the single family. It really brings everybody together if they choose this site. Now they are looking at other locations within the community, as well as excuse me, as well as downtown Stoughton. So we met with their ownership group, I believe a week ago, and we gave them a CAD file that they're going to now use their architect to lay out some layouts that would show their outdoor areas that would connect them to the building. And again, we'll learn more about them and what their objectives are, but we can then provide you and the plan commission maybe come back prior to making a submittal um, on some of those comments that were shared tonight, as well as if we make any changes to the site plan as it relates to that end user.
All
All right,
right.
thanks, Dave.
Anybody else have any questions? And I would just add, part of the conversation is with this, with the multi-unit, they have to dedicate parkland, and I think they have a plan for that as well.
We do, Mr. Mayor. I think we have been negotiating with or looking at additional land for the development. In fact, our single family bulk buyer is also looking for year 3 products. So they want another 80 acres, and they're also looking at other areas throughout Stoughton. They really like the community. I'm pretty excited about some of the feedback we had received late last week from them. With that, we're going to have a lot more opportunity to provide a much larger park to add to the existing park that's been dedicated.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any last minute thoughts? I'm sure we'll be seeing this at least one more time, maybe more than that.
I would suggest we come back another time to show site plan modifications based on what we heard tonight, and provide another drawing that shows a little bit of massing as you were come down Jackson, with connectivity to sidewalks, and maybe show a little bit more amenity around the wetland with grades.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that, and we'll look for the information. At this time, commissioners, since we have Chief Rip on the call, I'd like to go back to the item that we talked about earlier. I think it was item number 8. Michael, if you can pull that map back up. Here we go. So, Josh, the commissioners had some questions about this, similar to what you just answered on the other development. So I think it was either Todd or who else had the really kind of the same overall question. You could feel free to ask Chief Rip.
I'm the one who started it, so I'll ask the question. I know with these development plans, we often the developer proposes changing the setbacks and the distance between buildings, and in this particular proposal, it included having buildings within that 20-foot distance again. And I know just because of other developments, we've talked about that from a safety perspective, and it sounds like, based on an earlier conversation, that 20 feet, particularly I think on lot 2, 3, and is that 4 up at the top there in the orange area, is the primary area. Is that again, it doesn't sound like it's going to be an issue with the fire department to allow for those buildings to be within 20 feet of each other.
Correct. There's in the building code, there's some adjustments that are made to the construction fire resistive requirements as the buildings get closer together to help deal with that. So, 1 and 2 and 3 hour rated construction for that. So, I'm comfortable with that in the grand scheme of things. Just knowing how that's going to go. And I'm trying to get on my map here.
So right now we're looking at the west side map on our map.
I was just trying to get a closer look at it. Is there, Mike, can you zoom in?
And you might be able to with your mouse on your computer, or you might be able to enlarge it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and we really hadn't, Chief Miller and I hadn't done any measurements on figuring out what the distance actually was between these. So I'm okay with 20 feet. Less than 20 feet by much, I'd be starting to get a little nervous for us to work between. But 20 feet I'd be comfortable with.
Thank you.
Did anybody else have anything on that issue? So I'm wondering if that gives the commissioners enough information to make the recommendation to the city council.
Go ahead, for a day.
Well, we had the earlier motion. Do we need, so we starting over from scratch with the new motion then?
Yeah, I think you're basically, you can handle it two ways. I think the motion really said you wanted to talk to the chief, you did, or you could reconsider this motion. You could probably do it either way. I mean, we'll get the gist of it if that's something you want to do. I'm just trying to save the special meeting. It's really what I'm trying to do at this point.
Well, I would propose that we have satisfied the conditions of the earlier motion by having this conversation with the fire chief, and I would move that we send this, approve this and send it to council.
And is there a second?
I second it.
All right, and any discussion on this one? Sorry I couldn't get the chief on earlier, but he probably saw him screaming out of town in the fire truck. But he was nice enough to join us when he got back. Hopefully it was a false alarm.
Yep. Yeah. False alarm, just a malfunctioning detector.
I'll take that any day of the week, especially on a commercial property. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion does carry. Takes us to future agenda items. We know that we'll have the concept plans coming back. Anything else from Michael from your end? You're on mute. Yeah, I can hear you, but I can't hear you on the screen.
That's good, because I was talking to myself. I think we've got Isham Street platting is coming. I don't know if we want to discuss face-to-face meetings, but we need to talk about that, how that's going to work. I know they wanted to discuss trail requirements for developments, so that's kind of on the horizon, and review a parking lot and drive-through safety issues. I know that was another hot button item. So, and changes from a GDP to an SIP. I know that you wanted to discuss that too. So that's where we're at.
All right, anything from the commissioners for a future agenda item? And then what we can do is we can send out a survey for you guys. I mean, it seems like we know we have the technical ability to do in-person or hybrid meetings if we want to have people Zoom in and or show up in person in the council chambers. We have that capability and we can record from there as well. So we did a couple test runs last week. We'll feel confident that we can do that without any major issues. So I think if you'd like, we can reach out to you confidentially, individually, and you can let us know if you're comfortable coming back. I know the city council members all are. In fact, we're planning on doing that for the committee of the whole this week. And then hopefully, you know, come July at the meeting, maybe we can go either hybrid or you can come in person if you wish. Unless there's somebody that really just doesn't want to do it, they could always just log in virtually. But that's probably the way we're going to go. And I guess that's pretty much where we're at as far as the agenda for tonight. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn.
In a second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned. Thanks. I know it was a long agenda, but a lot of good stuff going on. So thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Thanks.